and you've never seen somebody say, you know what, hold on a second, that's on me, that's my mistake, I made that mistake, it's going to be hard for you to do that for yourself, especially if it's not perceived as acceptable or it makes you look weak.
When you start to understand the benefits of taking responsibility, on the other side of taking ownership is the power to do something about it.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. Alan has a little sippy cup that we call Bubba. He's got his little Bubba near him. That's why I'm smiling. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was last week's live podcast, How to Earn More Money. Today, for episode number 933, How Excuses Steal Your Power. Alan, this was your idea. I will let you lead the dance.
All right, so when I was younger, for those of you who don't know, I grew up in what we now refer to as a pleasure-centered paradigm, which is a deep belief that life is about having fun. And I had an older sister. She was 3 years older, and she always hung out with an older crowd. So when I was 15 years old, she was 18. And she hung out with 21-year-olds. And so she hosted these big parties at our house. We had a lake and a bonfire and a big yard, and we were like a really good house to go to. And so I remember I hung out with, from a very young age, just a lot of older kids. I mean, these kids were 21, 22, 23, sometimes even 24, 25, and then everything in between. And I'm 15 at the time, and me and my buddy Kiki at the time were handed a shot of wild turkey. And that was my introduction to alcohol. So for those of you who do not know, I had a challenge with alcohol for quite some time. I drank too much and too often. I partied in high school, partied in college, and then I partied in corporate a little bit. And then later on, I eventually decided to quit drinking. So fast forward. So this was high school. I was 15 years old, which I think makes me a sophomore in high school at that point. Fast forward. My sister graduates high school. She goes on and does other things. She moves out. I'm now hosting parties at my house, following in her footsteps with older kids and younger kids. And fast forward, I go to college at WPI in Worcester, and there's 12 fraternities on campus and 4 sororities. And so it's a pretty big party school, all things considered, and I did some of that as well. Fast forward, I get to Cognex. Cognex is a company, and I had a lot of other companies prior to this, but Cognex is a company whose motto is work hard, play hard. And they used to host these big Halloween parties, and they were honestly awesome. There were Halloween contests, and I remember my team and I at the inside sales team, prior to me being promoted to outside sales, we were the Reservoir Dogs. And then after that, the next year, we were... I was Axl Rose. We were Guns N' Roses, which was really cool. And we actually won that year for Guns N' Roses as best Halloween costume. And so this party was a really big party. And then later after the party, so this is in Framingham, Massachusetts. And then after that, we went to Boston. And I had a bunch of friends from college that had places in Boston. And one of the fraternity brothers that I went to school with was hosting a big triple-decker party in Boston. And I ended up going there with my girlfriend, and it was this really fun party, and we had been, day drinking, and then we went to the Halloween party at Cognex, and there was drinks there, and hors d'oeuvres and all that. Then we went to the after party. And at the after party, my girlfriend and I had gotten in a little tiff where I accidentally called one of my old friends from college Sweetie, and Courtney got really upset with that. Understandable. And I was not as... let's just say, intelligent or kind as I would have liked, okay? So anyway, Courtney and I get in a fight, and I end up going to my old roommate's place later that night, and I end up staying over at that place, and then I walked to my buddy Greg's apartment in Boston, where I had left my car. And I am walking, and I've never told this story before, because this is like 2 weeks before Halloween, and it's a Halloween party, so I'm dressed like Axl Rose. I've got tattoos. I'm in there's actually funny pictures online of it. But anyways, so I have like a muscle shirt on with tattoos. I'm dressed as a rock star. I've got black, like, tight pants, and I've got fake hair, and I've got guy liner on. It's like a whole thing. And I'm hungover, and I'm trying to get into Greg's apartment, and I can't get in. So I end up getting escorted to Greg's apartment by 2 police officers who I say, like, no, like, it was a Halloween party. Like, it's all good. Like, I'm not trying to break in or anything. So it was this whole thing. So anyways, not my finest moment. Okay, not my finest moment. Greg, I get escorted to Greg's apartment because he was still sleeping by these 2 cops who get into this apartment building for me. And they're like, do you know this guy? And Greg's like, yeah, no, I do, totally. And Greg still tells that story of, like, Alan was escorted by the police to come back to, and they laugh about it. It's all good. But after that, I started questioning some things. And that's the lesson here. You can change. I've been sober now for over 3 years. And I really kind of quit drinking 8 years ago. I've only drank about 5 times in the last 8 years. And I remember the last time I ever drank was in Westerly, Rhode Island. But the point that I'm making is that you can't really change something until you first take responsibility for it. Now, I'm not saying that I was an unhappy drunk. I'm not saying that I was a bad person. I'm not saying that I had bad intentions. No. I was not a bad person. I did not have bad intentions. I've always wanted good for myself and others. But I have made poor decisions before, and I have definitely been ashamed of some of the things that I've said or done when drinking. And if you've ever been to parties where you drank a lot, I'm sure you can say the same. But here's my point. After that morning happened, when I got escorted to that apartment building by 2 cops, and I wasn't in trouble or anything, but I was definitely like, okay, I'm not really thrilled with the way I behaved last night, and I got to check in with this. Is this a problem? Is this serving me? And so at the end of the day, alcohol just was no longer serving me. It was something that was hindering my ability to have the happiest, healthiest, most productive life possible. So now here I am 8 years later, happy, healthy, productive, multiple businesses, incredible podcasts, self-improvement, all these amazing things. And I've, not drank for over 3 years now. And I'm definitely the healthiest version of myself, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, health, wealth, and love, and life. That's what this podcast is about. But what you don't see is me on that morning in my less than ideal moment. In my not so fine moment, you're not seeing me dressed up for a Halloween party, being escorted to an apartment, having cops ask my friend, how embarrassing is that do you know this guy? Hungover. See, that less than ideal version of me, that less perfect version of me, that part of me that made mistakes and wasn't perfect and wasn't that into personal development, at least not consciously. You're not seeing that right now. And so there's no way that I could have gotten here if I didn't first take responsibility for my own life, responsibility for my own decisions. And the truth of the matter is that I had a moment where I'm like, okay, Alan, you grew up in this, and that is not your fault. But it is your responsibility to break this cycle and to do something different. This is not serving you. You can change. And so I remember thinking to myself, a lot of people would get too drunk when I was younger, and they would end up hurting me and being unkind and things like that. And I ended up being that. I was like, holy crap, am I doing that now? The very thing that hurt me so much? I need to change this. And so that's the point of this episode, is you will not make a change until you take responsibility for whatever it is that is less than ideal in your life. So stop making excuses. Just like I did. I stopped making excuses. Yeah, I grew up in a tough environment. Yeah, I grew up around alcohol. Yeah, I had alcohol handed to me when I was a kid. Yeah, I grew up with my sister and older friends and parties. Yeah, I was in a company that was work hard, play hard. Yeah, I was in a fraternity, blah, blah, blah. All those things are true, but the truth is, underneath all of that, is that I wasn't taking responsibility for those things. And so, no, it's not your fault that you grew up in a certain environment, but it is your responsibility to stop making excuses and actually change that.
And I'm very proud of you for changing that, brother.
Thank you, man.
You're very welcome. So Alan just spoke to this. It's hard to fix a problem that you do not admit is yours. And I'm going to go a couple different ways on this. Very early in the business, I remember when we were trying to get clients, I remember my excuse was always, I don't know sales. I've never done sales. I don't know anything about business. I've never done business. I'm not really good with numbers. I don't really know math that well. For a long time, and Alan, you can subscribe to all those things. You've heard me say those things, I'm sure, throughout the years. When you say things like that, you get it feels like a short-term win. Oh my God, excuse me.
You got this,
excuses make you feel good in the short term because you don't have to take responsibility. That is what I was trying to say. So I have been
You got it. Power through.
Last night, Taryn and I had a conversation, and Alan and I talked about this today. We're actually going to do an episode on this. So we were talking about getting a new bed, and she said, well, you know what's going to have to happen? We're going to have to move the office around. And I got a little bit triggered because I care for very few things when it comes to where we live, but the office is where I spend most of my time because this is where we get all the work done. This is where we record. This is where I do my coaching calls, all of that stuff. And I got triggered and I got a little, we'll say, sassy. And when she said, okay, what we should do is move the office, we should restage the office, my initial reaction was argument. And I said, babe, I don't think you understand how important the office is to me. The way it's set up is optimal. And she said, well, I don't understand. I'm just a little bit confused. Like, why is it such a big deal? And I said, all right, let me dig here for a second. And I said, well, I like the way it's set up. The lighting is perfect the way it is. If we move a bed into the office, which we're going to do because we're going to have like a second bedroom, it's going to Jeff the way everything is set up. I'm next to the window. I love being next to a window because I don't see the sunlight because I'm never outside. And the argument, I don't really want to call it an argument. It was a discussion is really what it was. But it ended when I said, you know what? That's an excuse. Like, I apologize. It's an excuse for me to say that triggered me. Now, did it trigger me? Sure. But let me dig to why that actually happened. Why did that trigger me? Well, I think I probably felt misunderstood. I probably didn't feel fully understood to why the office being set up the way it is so important to me. And I kept digging and I kept digging and I kept digging. Now, I know early in this relationship, my relationship with Taryn, it was very hard for me to take ownership. It was very easy for me to make excuses. Well, you don't understand because you're not an entrepreneur. Like, you don't understand because you're not a speaker. You don't understand because you're not a podcast. You're not a coach. You're not in debt, blah, 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 whatever it may be. But when you give excuses as your answer, what you're doing is giving away your power, just like the title of this episode. And particularly if you're doing this in your relationship, you're putting some sort of crack in the foundation of your relationship because your excuses only matter so much. They only stand up so much. And the other person is probably going to see right through them. So last night, after that little discussion, I said, you know what, babe? That's on me. Totally my bad. Yeah, I was triggered a little bit. Here are the reasons why. How do we feel about it now? Like, let's have a conversation. And we ended up coming to the same answer. And I just think that so many of us, especially if you're in relationships, not just intimate relationships, but your environment, if you have relationships where it's not accepted to take ownership, or you've never seen somebody take the lead and take ownership, it's going to be very hard for you to do it. Alan taking ownership in that moment was him taking ownership of his actions. And that's challenging too, because you have to look in that proverbial mirror and realize, oh, I'm not living up to my standards. If you are in an environment and you've never seen somebody say, you know what, hold on a second, that's on me. That's my mistake. I made that mistake. It's going to be hard for you to do that for yourself, especially if it's not perceived as acceptable or it makes you look weak. I think there's a vulnerability to that, Alan. There's a vulnerability to you saying, you know what, that's on me. That's my bad. How have you combated that when it comes to relationships?
What is up, you guys? My name is Gabby, and I just want to give a huge shout out to Kevin and Alan for the community that they have created and the mission that they are on over at Next Level University. Never in a million years did I think when I started listening to the Hyperconscious podcast 2 years ago that I would be as invested as I am today. But here we are 2 years later. I have done group coaching. I truly look forward to every single episode they drop, all of the things that they're teaching. And I am now doing one-on-one coaching with Alan to help level up in my business. And all I gotta say about these guys across the board is they are true, genuine souls. They mean it when they say they are heart driven, and they mean it when they say they are no BS. And I think that's probably my favorite part about them. They get rid of the fluff. They give you tactical tips and tricks to help you level up in your life, to help you make strides towards your goals. And they've created a community of like-minded people to lean on each other at every single stage of life. So guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart for the impact that you have made in my life, and I am so very excited to see the impact and the waves that you make from here on out.
I think one thing to understand before I answer that is how much you believe in yourself. A lot of things we talk about lately have come down to self-belief. If you don't believe in your own ability to change, you most likely won't take ownership. So whenever you see someone not taking ownership, or you notice you're not taking ownership, you probably deep down just don't believe it's something that you can change, or maybe you don't believe it's worth changing or something like that. So the people that I grew up with who never changed their drinking habit, I think maybe on some level they didn't believe that they could change. So they always just kind of like wished it away or excused things away. That's what I've noticed. So how do I do it? I think it's something that I've practiced. Because the truth is, I grew up in an environment that didn't take a lot of ownership. And it's hard for me to even say that, but it's just true. And so I never saw it modeled. As a matter of fact, I really do think I grew up in an environment where, not just my immediate family, but like just in general, I mean, there wasn't a ton of responsibility of like, oh, yeah, that's on me. Or you know what it really is? I made poor choices when I was younger, and that's why I ended up here. There isn't a lot of people modeling this, and I know why. I'm reading a book right now that's part of the reason we're doing this episode. It's called Conscious Business by Fred Kaufman. We're going to try to interview him. The book starts with this premise of responsibility and how hard it is to actually take responsibility. Because think about this. If you're out there listening or watching, if you truly take responsibility for your own future, that's a lot of weight on your shoulders. If it's entirely up to you, that means you're choosing not to achieve your beach house. That means you're choosing not to have an extraordinary relationship. That means you're choosing. See, it's much easier to just say, I can't. Or, well, not in my country. Or, not in my town. Or, well, I'm from a small town. Or, I didn't have a dad. Or, I mean, one day I have this dream to sit up on a stage and tell these two stories. I've told you about this, Kev. I want to tell these two stories. I want to tell my story from two frames. The first frame is going to be a kid who grew up without a father, whose father passed away when he was 2, who had a stepdad who never wanted kids, and I can go down that road, and I can tell that story. Or I can tell this other version. And one of the versions is going to be the story. They're both true. That's the thing. They're both true. One of them, though, is from the frame of that's why I'm so successful. And the other one's going to be from the frame of why I could have ended up absolutely nothing. And I can't wait to do that one day. I'm not far enough in my life to where I want to do that yet, because it's going to be a really powerful thing. I'm only 33. I'm at the very beginning. But it's important to understand that I think responsibility comes easy to me because I have self-belief. And I think that I believe in my own ability to change anything that I want. I was talking to a client earlier who wants to come to the retreat, and I was like, yeah, I'm just very optimistic. And she's like, me too. And because this person is from Canada, and they're worried that they can't come to the retreat potentially, and like what would happen if I couldn't actually come because of the borders and the vaccine and whatever. And I said, honestly, most likely it's not going to be a problem because I'm just very optimistic. So my point is if you're not an optimist and you're a pessimist, if you don't have a lot of self-belief, you probably avoid taking responsibility because deep down, number one, you never saw it modeled, and number two, you just don't believe in your own abilities. And so it always comes down to that. And to answer your question, Kev, I would say when you start to understand the benefits of taking responsibility, on the other side of taking ownership is the power to do something about it. Because I can give 1,000 reasons why I drank too much and too often. I can give 1,000,000. I mean, and they're all valid. It doesn't matter though, because it's not going to help me to live in that old story, that old paradigm. And so I want to flip the question on you, Kevin, and then we'll go. because I think this is important. I think that one of the reasons you and I are so different in this industry is because we don't really let people make excuses. I mean, every episode of NLU might as well be a, hey, eliminate this next excuse. Are you telling yourself this story? Okay, here's the truth. Are you telling yourself this story? Okay, here's the truth. And I think that 1%, 1%, 1% every single day is kind of like getting people to realize, like, oh, I can do this. This is in my power. Yeah, my past was jeffed, but my future doesn't have to be. So I'm going to ask you the question, Kev, is like, how did you get to a point where you started to see taking responsibility as an empowering thing rather than I'm just going to take a cred hit and people aren't going to see me as a success?
I think so much of it has to do with the people around me. I really do. I think that when you take responsibility around people who then make you feel bad about it, I think that's when it gets toxic. If you, and this happens, right? You and I, this has happened where you'll show up late and you'll say, hey man, I'm so sorry I'm late. And then my natural tendency is not to say, dude, you suck. Like, you got to get better. Almost to a detriment. I probably should give you a little push.
Definitely.
But when you take responsibility, I don't want to pour on because I assume you probably already feel bad enough about yourself. I don't want to say bad enough, but you know what I mean? I assume that the necessity is now created through some sort of pain. For me, I've just been around people who have proven to me that taking responsibility isn't negative. It's respected. It's been respected, well received, and it has helped me lock that in as a behavior. And this is the other thing too. I think at a deep level, I know the people around me know I'm responsible anyway. If a ball gets dropped on my side, quote unquote, of the business, everybody knows whose fault it is. If I have an ego flare with Taryn, she knows. She knows it's my responsibility to fix that. And I think that when you have that sort of aligned relationship, business, intimate, whatever it may be, or that environment, the expectations are different. And this is the other thing too. You don't make excuses really, so how can I? Taryn doesn't make excuses when it comes to our relationship, so how can I? I do. I think there's that accountability that's built in.
Yeah.
And that's been years and years. You and I, 5 years. Taryn and I, coming up on 3. But I just think that just like anything else, your expectations are going to determine your behavior. If the expectations of your friend group are everybody makes excuses, everybody blames things on other things, and we're okay with it, you're never going to change. You're not going to have the necessity. But if you go into a new crowd, a new group, a new business, a new mastermind, a new peak performance partnership, and they say, look, that's my bad. I'm sorry I'm 15 minutes late. I could give you a list of excuses why, but honestly, I should have prioritized it and made my schedule tighter. That's on me. I think it's empowering, it's inspiring, and it might create a new habit for you. It makes it okay. It makes it okay to tell the truth. I think that's the best piece of value I can add is if your community doesn't make it okay to be vulnerable, you're going to miss out on so many conversations, so much growth, and so much opportunity. So I think it is the people around me. I really do.
Before we go, was there ever a time in your life where you feel like you were making excuses?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah, much of my life, there's still moments where I do.
Same.
Right?
And it's interesting.
I'm not perfect, and I never will be perfect, but my goal now is just to recognize quicker. Oh, you know what, babe, I'm sorry. That's BS. It's BS. That's what I do now. That's on me. Yep, totally on me. You're good. Like, I'm so sorry. And then we come together quicker because the ownership's faster than it's ever been.
Yeah, it's fire. Very last thing I'll say here is the victim thing. When you make an excuse, you are kind of saying, and this comes from the book, you are kind of saying, I am powerless to have changed this outcome. You're kind of saying, like, there's nothing I could have done about this. And so it's a short-term win for a long-term loss, like Kevin said, of, okay, well, there's nothing I can do about traffic anyway, so I guess it makes it okay to not change. You might as well be saying, like, here's why I can't change. Here's the list of reasons why I can't change. Jim Rohn said this. He said, I used to have a huge list of reasons why I can't do well. And it's like, the economy and the country and the business and there's no mentors and the all these things, traffic, and they don't pay enough and all that stuff. And his mentor said, I looked at your list, and it turns out the problem is you ain't on it. It's like, that's the thing. Throw out your list. Kevin and I will do the same. Throw out your list. You know what the truth is? I don't always tell everyone. I'm uncomfortable expressing my truth to some people when I'm frustrated. And I don't send the message when I should. I avoid it, and then that causes problems later. That is one thing that I'm growing through right now. What's yours? Throw out your excuse list. I'm not on time every time because I'm not organized enough and I'm overwhelmed, and I'm allowing that to stay. Throw out your excuse list. I want to throw out my list to the best of my ability, tear that thing up, and I want to put everyone right now listening, proverbially put on a piece of paper, here's your new excuse list. You just write your name. You are the only reason why you're not in better shape, why you're not working out consistently, why you're not having that tough conversation with your intimate partner, why you're not checking in on your relationship, why you're not saving more money or investing more money or earning more money, right? If it's because of someone else, you are powerless. If it's up to you, you are empowered, and that's what this episode's about.
Next Level Nation, as you know, we are heart-driven, but no BS. If one of the excuses you find yourself using on a day-to-day basis is I don't have a community around me, join Next Level Nation. It's totally free. There's a bunch of people in there who want more out of life. You will fit right in. Again, a lot of us have to get out of our own way. The link is in the show notes. Click it. It'll take you right to the private Facebook group. There's posts every day. It's positivity. It's inspiration. It's motivation. It's community. And we all want that at a deep, deep level. So get rid of that excuse by joining our private Facebook group.
Maybe you feel alone on a day-to-day basis. Maybe you feel like you are not as consistent as you want to be. Maybe you feel like you don't have other people in your corner supporting you, supporting your vulnerability. Maybe you feel like no one cares about your goals but you. Maybe you feel like you're the only one who has big goals and really does need to get to the next level. Group coaching is the solution. And the reason why is because it's accountability in a group of people that are all like-minded, and it's a way to achieve more in 90 days than you ever have. It is only $75 to lock your spot. It starts on April 19th. We have an assistant coach named Greg who's going to walk you through the process. We have Matt on the app. You're going to get on the app. You have Kevin and myself bi-weekly sessions every other week, making sure you are on point, learning and growing. And there are only 5 spots left as of right now. As a matter of fact, earlier today, we saw another sign up come through, which is awesome. And the people in this group are amazing. If you want to be a part of something bigger than yourself, it will be the Mario Kart booster you need. Please sign up as soon as possible. We will fill this group. We are going to fill it, so come lock your spot as soon as possible.
Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 934. It is last week's live Q&A. How do I talk to my partner about finances? Very difficult conversation, but if you have the right partner, it is something that is worth doing. As always, we love you, appreciate you, grateful for all of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans, we have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out.